Hello everyone, my name is May, welcome back to me. May, MIA again, but it's because I was in a musical. Production of Beauty and the Beast, so that's where I've been for the past ages. Anyway, today we are back here to review one of my favourite books of all time, from one of my favourite series of all time, from just basically all the things. HOLLOWPOX by Jessica Townsend, which is the third book in the Nevermoor Morrigan Crow series. Is that the official name for it? I don't know. If you have not started or read any of this series, I actually have two reviews already for the first book and the second book, and the second one is basically just a massive fan rant. But today, we are here to review and look at book number 3, HOLLOWPOX. Good on you, Townsend, for writing a plague in the year of the plague. Like, good on you. What a good time. There is a fly flying around this room, and it's gonna end up going into this shot. I know, don't do it. Stay over there. So I read this first when it came out last year, finally when it came out last year. So I'm gonna put this here. And then I read it again so I could do this review. And there's quite a lot to chat about, so let's get cracking, shall we? I'm excited. If you're excited, I'm excited. Actually, I'm already excited. You don't even need to. I'm excited. This will be a spoiler-filled review, but I'm gonna put the spoilery stuff more towards the end. So when I get to the spoilery stuff, if you haven't read the damn book, just buzz off and go read that, and the rest of us can all just fanage all over the place, like here, maybe even over there. Sup? As I kind of said, we did have to wait a while for this book. It was originally meant to come out like February of 2020, and then mysteriously they decided to push it back to like August, I think, and then mysteriously pushed back from August to September. I don't know why this pushback date happened, but based on the contents of the book, I kind of wonder if maybe they held it back for review to do a few more edits on it, realizing there was a big plague that was starting. Given it was meant to release in February, they would have had to be very hot off the mark. Good on you, Hatchet Australia, if you saw that in the clouds and decided that you were going to push back this book and actually write more of a reflective piece on epidemics. This first little section that I'll quickly chat through, kind of a little bit of a synopsis of the first little bit, for those who haven't read the book and are like thinking, should I start the third book? The answer is yes, you should, but anyway, here's your little synopsis anyway. So in this book, we have Morrigan, and she's finally revealed to everyone else that she's a Wondersmith, so all of the school knows. Murgatroyd has decided that she is going to be taught the infernal arts of wonder, or whatever the heck is it's called. Murgatroyd takes Morrigan to a whole new level of Wandstalk, a whole new sub-level that no one else has kind of ever really gone to before. Murgatroyd morphs, and we meet Rook, her third counterpart, and the basement nerds, who are like just a really cool, organically introduced new cast of characters, which I really, really love. Morrigan then starts out in these lessons to learn the wondrous arts, and we get to learn all about like these pocket dimensions and these cool new bits of the way wonder can be manipulated. And just saying, I already knew Wondersmiths were pretty OP, but they're so OP. Like, no wonder there's meant to be only 9. The whole Wondersmith system feels like there's plenty of holes in it that we haven't been told about, and I don't know whether they're plot holes or whether it's the fact that actually everybody is being lied to and Morrigan is yet to find that out. And I'm a little bit scared and very intrigued. Using these pocket dimension bits of magic, Morrigan goes back in time to learn the wondrous arts from previous Wondersmiths. Again, just a really cool idea, and I love it so much. And it's great in that she slowly... Okay, I'm trying not to do spoilers. Morrigan then goes to like the huge Christmas celebration-y thing with Hawthorne's family, and on the way back they get separated. They end up on the train with this frenzied leopard one who kind of goes nuts and starts trying to attack people. This then turns out to be this horrible disease called the HOLLOWPOX. A disease that has no symptoms and isn't traceable except for that it only affects the one-animal population. It turns them into a frenzied beast, and then they basically fall into a coma. A little bit dangerous and a little bit scary. I think I'm probably now going to start diving into some spoilery stuff as we talk about this virus, and we talk about racism, and we talk about then the rest of the other plot elements that aren't just those two main huge topics that this kind of talks about and covers. But yeah, disappear if you haven't read this book now. Reading this book during the lockdown felt just so surreal, as this entire virus is driving the entirety of society in this fear and anger and loss of control. And I think actually it's a fantastic tool that Townsend has managed to do, in that she has a younger audience that is meant to be reading these books, and I think giving them a platform and a tool with which to try and address the world that they're seeing around them in the book that they're reading, to be able to see what are the kind of responses that people can take to this stressful environment of having a pandemic. Really, this virus is nothing like COVID at all, but I honestly think this book is a real tribute to children's literature in the way that it gives children a way to think about COVID through the book that they're reading. They really can match up the horrible disease that's going on in the world around them in the story that happens to be in front of them. And then, on top of that, we have this disease that only affects a certain number of the population and causes immense hate and discrimination towards a certain populist group. Especially, this book shows that it's bringing out racism that was already there and discrimination that was already present but just was not talked about as much. Which obviously is fantastic as Black Lives Matter marches right across. I think this book gave me so much to think about in regards to just processing what was going on around me of COVID and Black Lives Matter and Asian Lives Matter and all of that, and having a fantasy world that was kind of just doing it on a much lower, less ramped up level, you could say, because it's not real, but at the same time, not allowing me to ever rest thinking about it, but giving me a different angle to look at the narrative from. And I think that's really, really important, especially for children to be able to have a different way to look at the narrative, to be like, oh, actually, I hadn't thought about it in that way. And this really helps me to be able to see it in that light. So I'm going to move on from some of the serious stuff to the next serious thing, which is pocket dimensions, everybody. Pocket dimensions, the next cool thing. The Goblean Library, I said that. Goblean Library, School of Wondrous Arts, the Wonderground. I honestly am very intrigued. Townsend is really setting up pocket dimensions to use them later. Like, obviously we have the Goblean Library, which we hardly got to see anything of, which means we definitely are going to get to visit that later. But like, even the ice skating room that she and Jack and Jove go to, like, that's kind of a pocket dimension. And Trixie Lanes are a type of pocket dimension, I'd say, because they change the reality of the space that you're in for the moment while you're in there. I'm genuinely so intrigued to see what she ends up doing with that and how she ends up pulling that out, and ultimately pulling the rug out from us and our characters. Like, it's going to be catastrophically beautiful, and I cannot wait to see it. Basically made like a little list of bullet points of things that I kind of just want to fan about, and I don't know whether this list is going to make any sense, but I'm just going to say the list. Maybe I'll reorder it later in editing, but whatever. So the next thing on my list is President Wintersea. Now, this just actually showed how much I'm conditioned to think of female roles as nurses and teachers, and male roles as mechanics, because when I found out that President Wintersea was a female, I was like, what? Oh, okay, cool. I was like, yes, yay, but just realizing that my brain had already thought and assumed immediately that Wintersea was a guy. So just, whoa, guys, apparently check your brains, because they're trying to trick you into conforming. Anyway, Wintersea honestly gives me so much creep vibes, and especially because the way that she seems so kind and calm and collected, and you're like, you are an effed up person. I can tell, mostly because A, you run a freaking dystopian fascist society, and B, because Ezra School is scared of you. Also, you have Ezra School under your thumb, and that's very scary. Or is some bigger game being played and Ezra is only maybe under her thumb, but not really? President Wintersea, I feel like she's opened up our eyes to the idea that Ezra School is not the only big bad. Suddenly, you realize how large the stakes are, and you're a little bit like, oh, okay. I think now we've met our big bad, but I don't know, like, is there someone above Wintersea? Is there someone opposing Wintersea that's also like, I don't know. I feel like we've met our big bad, but I wouldn't want to confirm it, you know? Whoa! I am very confused at his motives now. He's been already confusing us all a little bit with the way he's been playing his cards, like all the way through these books. School always plays his cards in a way that you just never expect. But honestly, his sudden switch to want to heal the HOLLOWPOX to have Morrigan as his apprentice was not something that I didn't think he would do. But the fact that he killed all of his classmates, and then the fact that he desperately doesn't want to let Wintersea into the country, we already know that he loves the motherland of Nevermoor. But also the destructive lengths that he's done on his fellow Nevermoorians, and the way he goes about. I'm just so confused at this guy's motivations, because everything about him seems to conflict, but it's all part of his complex character that we have. Which is why I'm so excited in Silverborn, which is the name of the next book Townsend has announced about a month ago. I'm so excited to see what an apprentice-master relationship is properly going to look like between Squall and Mog, because it's just already so intense of the way they interact. So just seeing that actually is a master-student relationship is going to be a wild time. I just want to know, like, what is Squall's ultimate plan? Like, why did he kill all those people? And what's the history? Like, what is all the history behind all this stuff? We need to know it. All that shit was destroyed. Give us the freaking tea already. We want to know. Definitely calling now that Mog is going to go back to the library to find more of that history, and I bet she's going to find more than she thought. We already know that Wondersmith history is already pretty effed up with what people believe and what people understand and what is actually true. So I'm just very interested. I also found this very interesting to have Squall as not really the villain per se in this book. Like, yes, he made the HOLLOWPOX, but at the same time, he was quite happy to fix the HOLLOWPOX, and he's kind of always on Mog's side. And he makes the absolute truthful point that he's never lied to Mog. He kind of twists stuff to his own means, but don't think he ever actually has directly lied to her, which is a bit scary, given he's quite happy to lie to everyone else. His willingness to fix the HOLLOWPOX in the end kind of casts a different shadow on his character than what we've ever seen before. Note how I say shadow there, not light? Intentional. Seeing his character next to Winterseed shows that it's not about just being able to wield power, it's who wields the wielder of power. And we're kind of starting to see that's not Squall necessarily. But it's kind of a little bit scary seeing this guy who we've thought as very, very powerful, possibly being someone's puppet, and that's a little bit unnerving to say the least. Okay, so Mog's training, we're down in the sub-zero levels, and the deities? What the heck is? We're starting to add deities into this? I'm so keen. This is what this book needed, and deities are definitely the kind of thing that I feel like is going to have driven at least Squall's narrative in the kind of horrific acts that he ended up doing. I feel like there's nothing like a zealot crusader or a pious unbeliever to absolutely wreak havoc and make the streets run with blood. Don't crusade, that's the lesson, everyone. I'm so keen to see how this ends up shaping Mog. Ooh, I feel like I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but C&D. One-Sock's C&D. I feel like this is one of actually the biggest scoping parts of what this book has managed to do, is show us why the Wanderer Society matters. Because for so long, we've been like, wait, you go to the Wanderer Society for a few years, you then graduate, and you're continued to be given all these special privileges. Like, why? Why does this society honor these people so much? This seems just like we're throwing a bone to the rich and powerful. It really just opened a whole new pocket up for One-Sock. No pun intended, and shed a lot of light onto our understanding of why this society persists in its importance within the whole society of Nevermoor itself. Seeing that it's not just a fancy school, but actually all of the members continue to work for the school and do stuff for C&D kind of makes everything seem like it makes sense again. Also, the fact that we realise that Nevermoor is not really at peace with anything, that there's a bunch of internal and external wars that are going on, that's all being hidden and secluded, which just kind of makes you wonder how close is Nevermoor from going to the bad as well, given they lie to their population just almost as much as the Wintersea Republic does. Like, they're basically gaslighting their entire population into thinking that they're fine. Don't know how I feel about that. And I'm interested to see Mog unpack how she feels about that. And I partly wonder is that something that ticked Squall off enough that he decided to wreak havoc against everything? I don't know, but I wonder. That was a pun. Did you wonder? Kind of like Nevermoor thinks it's so much better than the rest of the world, but really it's a tightly controlled pocket of freedom as opposed to the tightly controlled pocket of jail that's the rest of the world. I'm literally at the point where if there was a secret war that we didn't know about, I wouldn't be surprised. Like full-scale war, I wouldn't be surprised. It makes your skin crawl almost with the anticipation of how much could go wrong. I love it so much. I do think we did get to see a little bit less of Cadence and Hawthorne than we've got to see in previous books, but obviously, like, that's because we got a whole new cast of people. Basement nerds, Rook, Wintersea, Holiday, lots of the C&D department, the library people, like just quite a lot of new characters that were introduced to us that honestly spend quite a lot of page time. And also that's something that's addressed in the book, of the fact that Morrigan is shutting herself away from everybody that cares about her, and that's a bit of a problem. Squall even actually makes the statement of the fact that Wondersmiths don't really have any friends. And so I'm interested to see where that's going to drive Morrigan. Is she going to drive that to make that a self-fulfilling prophecy of her actually slowly driving all of these friends, 919 people away? Or is it going to make her be like, no, F you, Squall, I'll do what I want? It really could go either way, and I'm intrigued and excited to see which way it goes. The thing is, though, is that if she does drift away from all of her friends, Mog could easily end up becoming the villain. That's the whole idea that it's currently playing with, is that she would not be the villain. But is it going to double bluff us and actually turn her into the villain? Obviously, the idea is that she won't turn into the villain, because she could turn into the villain, but what if it all ends up as the villain for a while and then comes back and be a good guy? That could be fun. I'm down for that. I feel like it's probably not likely, given this is middle grade, but it is a hardcore middle grade with a full fascist society going on the side, so anything's possible. But Townsend, if you can manage to pull off the villainhood arc and then have a spectacular redemption arc at the end, please do it, because I want to read it. Do it. I want more middle grade that does that. So far, we only have skullduggery pleasant. Anyway, I think that's basically about it, and I definitely think my storage space is about to run out, so I will wrap up here. Please tell me what you thought of this book in the comments below. I honestly would love to hear your rants and raves and your fan theories, or what you had for breakfast today. Let's chat more in the comments until the next book comes out. Bye! Third book in the Nevermoor series. Nevermoor Crow series. Wow. Meant to do a review, and I just kept on meaning to do a review. Anything could happen. I don't remember what I was gonna say. Yeah, the boy. I think the fact that this book definitely the fact